Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the JDC West 2023 Business Strategy presentation. Before starting today, the JDCW Organizing Committee would like to make a land acknowledgement. The University of Saskatchewan, Saskatoon campus is located on Treaty 6 territory in the traditional homeland of the Métis. We pay our respect to the First Nation and Métis ancestors of this place and reaffirm our relationship with one another. We pledge ourselves to create a competition that celebrates the diverse cultures and history of this land. Thank you to our judges, Kenzie, Kelly, Jamie, Rory, and Chinook, for being with us today. My name is William Eichhorst, and I will be the academic moderator for this presentation. Competitors will have a maximum of 20 minutes to present. Immediately following the presentation, judges will have a total of 5 minutes to ask questions to the presenters. Our academic timekeeper is Sophie, sitting in the front, and she will hold up time cues throughout the presentation and the question period. Judges will indicate their question by raising their hand, and then you will have to be able to answer their questions. No questions or comments will be permitted from the audience at any time. Please ensure that your cell phones are turned off or to silent, and that there is no talking amongst yourself or signaling to the competitors throughout this presentation. Competitors, good to begin.
As proud Canadians, nothing could make us happier than to stand before you today and talk about something that we know can bring millions of us together. And what better thing to bring people together than ice-cold beer? Thank you so much for joining us today, judges and spectators. My name is Marianne, and I'm joined by my colleagues, Justin and Sarah, and we are so excited to present to you today our strategy for your business. So first and foremost, we're just going to talk about the crux and the most important thing that we wanted to uncover today throughout this entire presentation. And that is, how should Gradient structure a plan for growth and sustainability in order to meet the milestones necessary to secure the acquisition with Empire. So now just going into how we compartmentalize this primary issue for your business. So we compartmentalize it into 3 different sections: short, medium, and long term. To start off with short term, it's how can Gradient improve their declining financial state, followed by medium term being lack of recent innovation products, and lastly, long term is how can Gradient ensure long-term financial sustainability. The recommendation plan for these terms are to improve operational and production efficiencies, capitalize on low customer base with customized products, and new US product launch, and capitalize on Empire's current resources. The milestones, which you highlighted so clearly that we could meet, are $1 million in net income increase by January 2024, introduce 3 new products by January 2026, and lastly, $20 million in revenue increase by January 2028. So now going into the internal analysis, just analyzing your company and just to see the strengths and weaknesses and then divulge from there. First and foremost, we're going to start off with your strengths. So the first one is that you have very strong margins on flagship and craft products. Why is this important for you to know? The great product that brings strong client base then translates to the strong financials. Moving on to the second strength is that 100% Canadian operations. As I mentioned earlier, we are proud Canadians. This is very important for us to maintain those operations in Canada. And that means that this also protects your business from potential emerging globalization issues as well. Moving on to the weaknesses of your business is now that production and operational inefficiencies. So as you previously mentioned to us, the cost of rent for tap rooms, low conversion market, and increasing labor costs fall short to break even, which we will dive into later on throughout the presentation as well. And secondly is dependency on Empire Inc. for growth. So that acquisition is necessary for the growth and financial prosperity of your business. So just to conclude, why is this all important for you to know? This is important because you should focus on operational and production inefficiencies to maintain strong margins and prosper in its current and new business ventures within Empire. Now, at a greater scope, now looking at the external analysis here, this is just a deep dive into your opportunities and threats as a business. First off, we're noticing that there's extensive resources made available from the Empire acquisition. So you can leverage this expertise and intellectual property to enhance your business practices. Secondly is the new beer launch, which would then progress you into an advancement into a profitable growth strategy, which again, we will divulge do more throughout the presentation as well. Moving on to the threats of your business is that global macroeconomic slowdown. So this may inflict a contradiction in demand for all product lines in your business as well. Secondly is that harassment allegation from Empire's merger company. This may lead to negative repercussions from the media, which can be mitigated, as you will see throughout our presentation. What is this to say? This means that Gradient needs to tunnel its focus into crafting new beer launch to enhance its desirability to Empire using its already strong resources. Now just moving on to the decision criteria, this is vital to our recommendation plan for you, and these are the 3 key necessary things to ensure that you meet your milestones that you need to have. First and foremost is to be innovative, a strategy that will keep you going and keep customers enticed to buy the product. Secondly is that long-term sustainability to make sure that your company stays on top. And lastly is that alignment with Empire's values as a business as well. Moving on to the alternatives, these are the possible alternatives for your business as well. These are the ones that we have compartmentalized and decided upon that could be feasible for you. First and foremost is that beer launch and company restructure. So essentially what this means is that we would launch a new beer product line to improve those efficiencies within that company and then restructure the company from there. Secondly is launch non-beer products, that is to say non-beer products like seltzers, cocktails, etc. And lastly would be the immediate international expansion into global markets. So looking at all of these weighted outlooks together, we can see that alternative 1 to beer launch and that company restructure does comply with that innovation, long-term sustainability, and lastly, alignment with Empire's values that you so desire. Second alternative does not comply with that long-term sustainability and alignment with Empire, and those low margins giving a high startup capital, leading to insecurity in reaching the milestones that you need. And lastly, with our third alternative is that immediate international expansion. Again, it does not comply with long-term sustainability and alignment with Empire's values because there's no integration with Empire, and there's still inefficiencies that exist within that alternative as well, which is why we decided to go for the first alternative, which is the beer launch and company restructure.
Thank you so much. So delving right into the recommendation, we've compartmentalized our recommendation into 3 main phases. First, the initial phase will deal with the restructuring of your company and identifying the inefficiencies that exist within your company to build a strong foundation for future ventures and to ensure that the integration of Empire and Gradient operates in a smooth and cohesive manner. The second phase of our recommendation is the domestic product launch. As we had mentioned before, and as Marianne had outlined, it is more feasible for your business to implement your strategies into a beer-launched product and stay away from the non-beer product launches. So in order to do this, we're going to capitalize on the foundation that we created in phase 1 and create a strong product launch of 3 different products for the new beer product phase. And finally, we want to expand your operations, capitalize on the opportunities that Empire provides you, capitalize on their production facilities and the expertise that this large corporation provides you, and expand globally to really optimize and gain all the expertise that you can and the success that you can see in both the Canadian and US markets. So, to begin, I want to delve into the first phase of the recommendation, which is company restructure. We've outlined 2 main inefficiencies within your corporation. The first one being production inefficiencies. As you have outlined for us, we want to ensure that Gradient is set up for a foundation of successful operations, as we have seen that your business is currently witnessing low margins and high capital costs and increasing costs in various taproom divisions, specifically your Whistler, Calgary, and Saskatchewan divisions. These operations are operating at a net loss of $3.5 million. In order to combat this, we want to remove this product division from your operations in order to save that $3.5 million and allocate that to something more reasonable and something more sustainable for your business practices. So how exactly are we going to go about doing this? Firstly, we want to close down the Whistler location, the Whistler taproom location. The rent, the costs, all of these expenses are just piling up and increasing the operating costs that your business is currently experiencing. So, and we will then reallocate these resources in phase 2, and I will talk about that in the future. Secondly, we want to close down the Calgary location, and then finally the Saskatoon location, and really, once again, emphasis on the importance of reallocating that $3.5 million loss. The second operation inefficiency that we've identified is obviously operational inefficiency. So this has to do with the jumping into ventures that haven't been researched that well, and just allocating your resources into certain ventures and geographical locations that don't aid your company. So in order to combat this, we want to really leverage on Empire's expertise, specifically in research and development. So really understand what geographical locations will allow you to have greatest product expansion and customer segment integration, and allow your company to continue to operate and reduce expenses in that regard. So really honing in on Empire's expertise in this division to increase your buying power, to reduce expenses, and understand which geographical locations will improve your business operations. And all of this is to say, we hit your first milestone. You wanted us to reach the milestone of 1 million net income, we got it for you. The 3.5 million reduction cost that we have taken from the production inefficiencies will be allocated to reduce $3.5 million cost total, and therefore increase your net income by $1 million. The second phase of this recommendation plan is to implement the beer product launch. Now, we want to implement 3 different beer products into your product offering. The first one is going to be called the Ski IPA. What exactly is this? This is going to be an IPA product directed towards those in the ski industry. And as we know, we have taken down your taproom location in Whistler. We want to reuse those resources and instead put them towards a ski IPA in a pop-up kind of situation to really revitalize that market and get that growth going all over again. So in order to do this, we're going to create a pop-up ski IPA. It's going to be more of a craft beer under your craft division. And then we're going to expand into Alberta, different locations depending on the success of this IPA, but mostly pertaining to the Whistler and BC areas to begin with, given that there's a high demand for ski beers in that location, and production of this will happen in the Alberta region as well. The second product that we have offered is the cheap lager. So this one is going to be directed to the teenage community, the university students, a really large demographic of beer drinkers. So what is this exactly going to look like? It's going to be under your flagship division, and the operations and production of this are going to happen in Edmonton and the Saskatchewan market specifically. And this is obviously going to be marketed across all of your product divisions, all of your market divisions currently, as we believe the success of this product is going to be substantial. The final product offering that we have for you is the ultra high quality craft. And now this is going to be targeted to more senior beer drinkers who really want that high quality product, and it's going to be marketed as such. And this is going to be produced in Edmonton and Saskatoon, and we're obviously going to leverage R&D from Empire's side of things to ensure that we're doing that continued market growth throughout everything. These 3 products have reached your second milestone that will allow your company to have the $20 million funding that is required. And so moving on into the third phase of the implementation is the expand and transition. So we have outlined a basis of 3 products, and we have revitalized your company structure. Now, how do we really leverage on this and continue to grow? Well, we want your company to expand into the U.S. with the support of Empire and with their production capabilities in the U.S. So how exactly is this going to work? Well, firstly, we want to conduct R&D research. We understand that the U.S. market is drastically different from the Canadian market, and for that reason, we understand that light beers are have a lot more emphasis in the U.S. market. And for this reason, we believe that we want to introduce the cheap lager that we had introduced in Phase 2 back into the U.S. market. And with an additional new light beer that is specific to the U.S. demographic. So 20% of the production capacity of Empire will be taken up by the lager, and 80% will be taken up by this new product division. And the production capabilities will be specific to a Wisconsin location based on research and development that has outlined that Wisconsin is the more profitable area of development. And obviously, as I had mentioned before, we want to leverage Empire's production capabilities, their partnership network, and all of their great offerings in order to ensure that this product and project can be undertaken smoothly and efficiently. And this will allow you to reach the third and final milestone that will allow you to receive a $20 million final funding of $20 million revenue increase.
So diving into the first phase of our implementation timeline, we can see that we've subdivided the two major activities throughout this phase, being the production and operational facilities on the left, each into 3 different parts. Now, the reallocation of managers is going to be taken by the Gradient HR team, and this is going to be the movement of the Empire production plant managers, as they have lots of experience in the area and have an inherently much lower cost of production. We're going to utilize this very valuable human capital and bring it into our existing plants in order to ensure this transition is smooth, seamless, and effective. Now, this has been allocated 7 months, as we understand it is quite the lengthy process to undergo such a movement. And it will be followed by the acquisition of new equipment for these plants, as this has also been mentioned as a large reason for a lack of efficiency within these existing plants. And the Empire procurement team will undertake this task due to their vast expertise and ability to get these pieces of machinery at a lower cost. Finally, the new plants creation slash integration, as Empire has vast amounts of underutilized production area, which we plan on taking advantage of. And the reason why the Gradient C-suite team will be on board is because we understand your love of making beers and your ability to do so very effectively for many years as a key value creator for your company. So we understand that it is essential for you to be in there, in person, in order to be the key driver of that change and incorporate your values within this new production plant. And moving on to the operational efficiencies, it simply consists of the eventual closing of all 3 of these tap beer locations due to the, as previously mentioned, the lack of profits that these branches generate for your company. And this will all be undertaken and finished by this fiscal year in order to ensure that over $1.5 million of incremental net income will be achieved through your company by the implementation of this plan. Now, moving on to the second and third phases of our implementation timeline. We're going to start off by integrating the product domestically, as we understand that the undergoing of multiple very large growth creation projects can be very strenuous. Therefore, we're going to be focused domestically first in order to ensure that we're capable of achieving this kind of growth in a profitable fashion before moving on to the United States expansion. Now, in order for this product to be successful in the United States, as my teammate previously mentioned, a lot of R&D is absolutely necessary due to inherent taste differences between the United States as Canada, as I'm sure many of you know. Now, we're going to utilize Empire's extensive R&D capabilities, which have proven to be a massive value creator for that company, in order to ensure that our product is absolutely optimized for those individuals whenever it is launched, which will be in Q3 of 2026. And it'll be followed by the continual improvement and marketing strategies, which will be undertaken in the United States, primarily from this new plants, and our ability to manufacture this product in the United States not only protects it from a lot of inherent risks with producing something in a different country, but also allows us to rapidly iterate feedback and keep some of the mentality of a relatively small company, despite the fact that you are being bought out by the #1 biggest beer producer by volume in the entire world. Now, through the undertaking of these 2 phases, your company will not only have the 3 new products as one of the key milestones, but will also have the $20 million in revenue increase, which are the final 2 of the 3 milestones necessary to ensure that your shareholders get the $60 million in compensation-based pay from the buyout of their company, and to ensure that they're all happy. Now, the primary risks that we've associated with this implementation First and foremost would be the global recession that many analysts may see coming in the future. Although it's not exclusive to your company specifically, it's hard to ignore the trickle-down effects that they may have, and it's important to address this effectively in order to continually move forward at a successful pace. Marianne's going to close it out with the executive summary.
Now, throughout the entirety of this presentation, we have outlined that with our strategy, you are able to hit the milestone of $1 million net income increase by January 2024, 3 new products by January 2026, and lastly, $20 million revenue increase by January 2028. Thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you.
Can you give your idea?
I'll start. You talked a lot about going into the U.S. Now, Gradient is right now in BC to northwestern Ontario. Why not Toronto? Why not Quebec?
That's a great question. And so, given the information that you had provided us, we had outlined the strongest sectors, given that that was Alberta, Saskatchewan, and BC. And you had also outlined that on Eastern Canada specifically, and Ontario, we're witnessing declines in revenue. And for that reason, we don't believe it's feasible or financially sustainable to expand eastward. And for that reason, we believe the U.S. demographic is much more profitable, a larger demographic to capitalize on. And for that reason, we propose that idea.
I was wondering if you could just expand on the ski IPA. Is that something specific to that region, or is this just the brand name is called ski, or is there some rationale behind why you're kind of strategizing towards that, and kind of tied it a little bit into the closure of the Whistler branch as well?
That's a fantastic question. So the reason why we are going after skiing originally was because of the closure of that Whistler branch. As you imagine, that Whistler branch was open in January of 2022. So we understand that you were trying to penetrate that market. So in order to retain a lot of those customers, and we understood that they weren't drinking a lot of these beers at the tap rooms initially, we had to focus on bringing them in a different way. Additionally, we didn't call it just for a Whistler IPA due to the increase in craft beer consumption globally, which is somewhat of an outlier compared to the rest of the beer industry. And skiers are a big driver of this increase. And additionally, many skiing locations throughout all of North America, and it's a market that your company has historically underutilized, in our opinion. Therefore, starting in Whistler, iterating that feedback and expanding outwards, we believe that you can capture a large percentage of that market through that activity.
I'm a competitive pickleball player. Maybe you'll make a pickleball IPA. Going into the U.S. market, so we're gonna leverage Empire's assets, know-how, and so on. Do you anticipate what are the clashes we should anticipate, if any, between Gradient and Empire?
Well, there can be a discrepancy between the operations. However, we do believe that because your values are going to align with our strategy with Empire's, we believe that those clashes will soon be mitigated.
Question on my end. In order to hit that first initiative, first milestone, I like how you have that and you're working your way back. There's going to be a lot of change management required. You're closing tap rooms, you have a list. What's that going to involve for change management costs, or just any thoughts towards that situation?
It's a fantastic question. So despite the fact that the closing of this would initially seem to generate $3.5 million in net income, we've only allocated a smaller number because we understand that there is going to be a large cannibalization. There is going to be a cannibalization effect by closing these tap rooms, as they generally bring a lot of business to those other segments, specifically craft beer. Therefore, we're going to focus on a three-pronged approach entailing the preparation for change, sustainment throughout the change, and considerations after the change, focusing almost exclusively at the beginning on those three markets of Calgary, Saskatoon, and Whistler in order to ensure that the change has gone smoothly to our new beer products and that no customer of yours is left unserved.
Tap rooms have been an important testing ground for us. So if you close them, we lose that capability. How do mitigate that?
That's a great question, and unfortunately, we didn't have time to consider that, but if we were to consider that, we would obviously implement those change management policies and understand the operations of the tap room and the implications that that would serve on closing them, and also understand that we would leverage our expertise with the new introduction of the products through those pop-up marketing campaigns to combat the risks associated with closing tap rooms.